Have you ever noticed that the most beautiful women often end up with the men who treat them the worst? Well, this is confusing. It's confusing to a lot of men to see this because for decades, Hollywood and to an extent Disney has been pushing forward this idea that if you're just nice enough to women, they will eventually like you. You will eventually have all your needs met from women. I mean, is that not the entire plot of the movie Forrest Gump? And if it's a bit before your time, and if you've been living under a rock for the past 20 years, Forrest Gump is a movie that came out in the 90s starring Tom Hanks. And the basic premise of the movie is that Forrest Gump is a kind of lovable idiot, right? He's a lovable, kind-hearted, slightly dim-witted man who ends up living this crazy life and going through these crazy adventures, mostly because he just bumbles into them without really knowing what he's doing. Now, the love interest for the entire movie is a woman called
Jenny.
Jenny. So Forrest and Jenny are friends as children. Forrest falls in love with Jenny. Jenny says no. But they stay friends anyway, okay? So Forrest doesn't really understand what a friend zone is apparently, and just stays in the friend zone for his entire life. So Forrest and Jenny grow up together, but all the while, Jenny is going on these crazy adventures. She's doing cocaine. She's a groupie for this band. So she's hooking up with all these band members and stuff. Eventually, Jenny changes her mind. And Jenny eventually sleeps with Forrest and says, "I love you, Forrest." They're from Alabama, that's how they talk. That's basically how the movie ends. I believe that this idea is not only a misrepresentation, like a complete misrepresentation and oversimplification of the way relationships work, but I also believe that this idea, taken to its extreme, can be actually dangerous. Have you ever heard of a guy called Elliot Rodger? You probably haven't heard of this guy because he's dead now. But he became really famous back in 2014, but for all the wrong reasons. Just a quick word interrupting this video to let you know about Man on Purpose. Man on Purpose is my flagship 12-week mentorship program. It's one-to-one. You'll work with me every single week on a call where we're going to take you from point A, which is if you're feeling lost, without a sense of direction in your life, you don't really know your purpose, maybe you've got a ton of bad habits, addictions, compulsive behaviors, maybe your relationships aren't what they could be, and we're going to take you to point B, okay? You're going to know your purpose by the end of it, you're going to know who you are, what you're on this earth to do, and you're going to know exactly what you want. So if you're interested in learning more about that, click the link in the pinned comment below. This will take you to the page where you can read all about it. Enjoy the rest of the video. Elliot Rodger was a 22-year-old man who went on a violent killing spree around the University of Santa Barbara, California, I think it was. I think that was the place. By the end of his spree, 6 people were dead, 14 were injured. When the spree ended, he turned the gun on himself, and that's what police found in his apartment. He'd shot himself. Now, the question on everyone's mind at the time was, what could drive a person to do such a disgusting, vile and evil thing? The answer came when they discovered his manifesto. And his manifesto, not only did this guy actually make a YouTube video talking about how unhinged he was and about his problems and about his plans even, he actually made a massive document writing about his entire life, about his twisted worldview, and about his plans. So he wrote everything down. So let me just read to you a bit of his manifesto just to prove what I'm talking about. Everything my father taught me was proven wrong. He raised me to be a polite, kind gentleman. In a decent world, that would be ideal. But the polite, kind gentleman doesn't win in the real world. The girls don't flock to the gentleman. The most meanest and depraved of men come out on top, and women flock to these men. Their evil acts are rewarded by women, while the good and decent men are laughed at. It is sick, twisted and wrong in every way. I hated the girls even more than the bullies because of this. But what everyone discovered from the manifesto itself is that in the midst of obvious mental illness, in the midst of obvious real trauma and real unhinged sociopathy and psychopathy, is sexual frustration. This is a man who was getting rejected by women all the time. And he had a worldview whereby he believed on some level that it was just some massive injustice that he, as a nice, good, kind, decent man who kills people apparently, wasn't getting laid, women weren't paying him attention, and that was the worst thing in the world for him. Rogers believed a lie. Now obviously I'm not saying this is the only thing, that idea itself is the thing that drove him to committing such a horrible thing, because it's a very complicated case, obviously, with mental health and gun control and all these other topics it brings up. But I am saying that that thing that Elliot Rodger believed is a lie. Now I believed this for the better part of a decade. The script that I had running in my mind was that if I'm just nice and kind and harmless, completely, like a rabbit, then women will like me, women will meet my needs, and everything will go smoothly, and I'll have a smooth problem-free life. Can you imagine the shock on my face that when this just didn't happen? Because what I experienced mostly was frustration, pain, rejection, and just confusion. When that worldview didn't match reality, I was completely dumbfounded by it. And I went in search of answers. Now, like most men, I went online. Can you imagine what I found? I found alpha male content. I found terms like beta and alpha. Betas don't have sex with any woman, and alphas have sex with all the women, so you can only be an alpha if you're not going to be a beta. It was all black and white. It was all or nothing. There was no middle ground. But there was a problem with this, because I didn't want to be an asshole. It completely conflicted with my moral compass. I want to be a good person in the world. I want to leave the world a better place than when I found it. I want people to be better off for having met me than worse off. So I didn't want to be, also felt really inauthentic to try and be one of these weird alpha bro characters that I keep seeing all over Instagram, by the way. But luckily, there was a third option. There was an option that was presented to me at just the right time. This answer came to me in the form of a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. It's literally probably the best book on men's emotional health and relationships that I can think of off the top of my head, and I think every man should read it. And what he presents in the book is a third option, which is to be what Glover calls an integrated man. So there's a spectrum, okay? We've got nice guy on the one hand, and we've got asshole on the other. A nice guy is just too passive. He runs into trouble because women often disrespect him. He often doesn't feel in control of his love life or relationships, and he often harbors like resentment and anger and shame and self-esteem issues. Whereas the asshole is too aggressive. He leans too far into that end of the spectrum. He lies, he cheats, he manipulates, he uses people to meet his own selfish desires for power, for gain, for status, for control, for dominance, whatever that is, okay? But the integrated man is in the middle, okay? This is a guy who's basically brought in both aspects of this. He's brought in the softness of the nice guy, the capacity for love and empathy and compassion, but he balances this out with the aspects of assertiveness and capability, and even in some cases aggression. The truth is, women love kind men. They just don't like needy, passive men who don't have a backbone, men who they can push around, men who don't respect themselves, so obviously they don't respect them either. Think of The Witcher with Henry Cavill, for example. The Witcher is a guy who's capable of loving a woman, he's capable of that softness, he's capable of care and compassion, but he's also an absolute beast when he needs to be. So as men, I believe we need to do two things. The first thing is we need to integrate and make friends with our anger. I also recommend, the second thing, that every single man do some form of martial art. Muay Thai, boxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, whatever it is, I don't care. As long as you have some sort of arena where you can make friends with the inner savage wild man within you. If you like this video, mate, then click this one next, because I guarantee if you like this one is going to be right up your street. Take care, mate, and I'll see you next video. Peace.